very nutritious, and it's something that you can eat for any meal. Breakfast, lunch, dinner, you can campuses. And it is something that we can do within the resources that we have because, listen, it is a very simple thing to make. We already have people around this area that are making it for students. And all we really have to do is prove that we can bring it to them the fastest. Bring it to them in buying dosa at least 4 times a week even, if they had the opportunity to eat it fresh. That's the key. And this platform that I'm proposing today can make that happen because making sure that we can make it locally and bringing it directly to the students' dorms within the half hour. I'm looking for an investment today of $500 to prove to the 14 individuals who've signed up to our platform that this works. Because then we can take this to a new level. We can bring nutritious food. We can bring a homely vibe back to UT when it comes to food. If you are interested in any way, please let me know. I look forward to hearing from you guys, your thoughts, and I appreciate your time. Thank you.
That was really interesting. I don't know what dosa is, but all it made me think about was boba tea. And I was just thinking, like, the pitch for this should be the pitch for boba tea, and like it's something like, but effectively you're like something like, hey, there's been trends of international foods and other things that have health benefits taking off as fads and becoming our trends, right? Something like boba tea might be like an example of that. Maybe there's other better ones, right? And then you got to prove to me that like you kind of said like I have this this huge health problem, and it was like I'm gonna give you this one specific food, and so like if this is really the magic food, like some kind of data behind like why is this gonna be actually, I believe you that everyone's gonna like this. I mean, you kind of said people, survey people, but I don't think most people know what it is, and then why is it healthier? Like, hey, if like you're kind of like, you said you can eat it for any meal, but like some kind of like, actually, if you ate, if you ate this many times, like, it has these health benefits or some other thing like that, or, blah, blah, blah. So I don't know, those are different things that would make it more compelling for me. But I think you should test it. Like, you said you surveyed people. Like, it seems like you can set up like a lemonade stand, like, and get tests, real data that way too. Like, just go, do that yourself or partner with someone to do that to get some real other data.
I guess I have a different perspective. I never met an Indian person who didn't just want auntie's cooking. And you come to UT and you realize all of Austin has 0 good Indian food, with the exception of Sangam. If you haven't been there, that's actually for real. And everything else is shit. And so you're screwed, and what do you do now? I don't know. And even if you do cook at home, you're still screwed because you're not gonna, And so just the taste of home for the Indian students, like, aren't we done with the pitch? Like, you can have dosa, case closed. As long as they're good, like, case closed. Then all the other students will understand. They'll smell it, they'll taste, they'll go, wait, what? Yeah, and then you'll get everybody else, then they'll understand. Madras Pavilion used to have good dosa, but I think they've probably gone downhill. They used to be the place to go in Austin and get it. It's not near UT anyway. What I don't understand is why it's not just a restaurant that delivers. Like, I don't understand why it's like some special thing and a platform and connecting and networks. It's like, isn't it just a dosa restaurant? And which is a great idea, but that's what it is, a restaurant.
Yeah. All things you could just more things you could talk about later or put into the pitch. But awesome. Yeah, like a ramen restaurant or something like that. So good job. All right, we got 2 more.
Data is the new gold. This is a quote from the CEO of Siemens. This is a new century where all this information is sometimes being thrown away. I've done market research. I've talked to businesses. Their CRM is too complicated if there's too much data involved. Salesforce is a $206 billion company. there's a market to be made here. And Bill Gurley even told me, the early investor of Uber, told me, if you can get into Y Combinator, you can sell this software to other startups. There's a market to be made here. Let me dive directly into what I'm talking about. You load up the software, and instead of being overwhelmed with all the tabs and all the columns, it's a chatbot. However, this chatbot has all your data from your customers, and your salespeople can easily type and get graphs and reports on their customers and insights automatically built. This is very different from Salesforce. This new approach has not been done before, and it's a market that needs a solution. Thank you very much.
We have a big Salesforce database and Gong and all that shit. You say it hasn't been done before. That is true that if you rewind the clock 2 years, it was not done before. But today, that's not true. There's a huge number of people doing this. So I guess the question is, what's different from the many, many startups and not startups that are doing this?
Yeah, I mean, it's really more about building, like, it being purely built on LLMs. So, like, the graphical user interface is going to be starting with...
That's the tech. And as the customer, I don't care how it happens. As the customer, how will this be different from the next startup that also has magic chatbot for my customer data?
That's a great question. You know, it's going to be not specialized to one specific industry. It's going to be modular so that all industries are able to work with it. It's not going to be like highly specialized like some of these HVAC CRMs or these service industry CRMs where they're very much hyper tailored to one industry. This is going to be modular so that your business is not pigeonholed.
My business is pigeonholed. If I'm an AC business, it's what I am. I don't care if you support accountants if I'm an AC business.
You ask great questions.
I think the bottom line is AI is a tech, but it's not the product. So I think what you want to think about is, what is the product? What is it that the customer actually wants? The customer doesn't want you to support many different kinds of businesses. They just want you to support theirs. The customer doesn't care whether you use LLMs or you're using some sort of vector database for this and that. They don't care. They don't even know what you're talking about. So I think you want to take the customer's point of view and say, what is it that they're giving the customer that they're going to say, oh boy, and that isn't what everyone else is doing because they're already going, and there's already YC companies doing this kind of thing. YC specifically, there's already companies doing this sort of thing. So yes, it is a good idea, but it's not true that it's never been done before. So I think that's your place where you could refine this, is like, what is this thing that's special to you?
Totally. Yeah. And I think there's lots of different ways to pitch it or to think about it. But to me, I like the idea of starting with a really specific niche because it's more believable to me that you could differentiate it and make it valuable to AC repair people or to plumbers or to somebody than that you can suddenly make something that's useful for everybody. Like, that's what makes Salesforce so damn hard, is because it's useful to everybody, right? So some different stuff to think about.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
All right, last one.
Hi everyone, my name is Manav. Nice to see you guys again for the whatever week running. I'd like to pitch you my consulting service. So it's called Rendition, and one of the main things I want to address is that in marketing, one of the most fundamental things that you can do is understand exactly what's going on in your customer's head. It's one of the hardest things to do, but when done correctly, that's how you make $1 billion. And here's the thing, beyond just humans, we're now dealing with a new wave of technology that can do exactly that. Understand exactly how a human thinks using AI. And so by training proprietary AI models for every single client, what you can do is you can figure out exactly the core parts of their business, who to appeal to, and in doing so, create higher converting paid advertising with better sales funnels that allow them for high ticket products such as courses, agencies, coaching, and all types of other high-ticket services to actually appeal to their customer in a better sense with higher volume, faster than ever before. And you're able to let companies build their moat by being first movers with better training data, with better types of ways to appeal to their customers. And at that point, all that you can see is that those companies will have a much easier time working with their paid advertising. So what exactly is it that we offer? I work with D2C companies that sell paid programs and agencies so that they can actually get their high-ticket clients on booked calls, bring a cold audience into their room or onto their Zoom, and actually give them the ability to sign more and more clients than they do right now. And in doing so, by using AI, they're allowing themselves to get much more personalized at a higher rate and better than ever before. And that's where I think the differentiation comes. Everybody says AI is going to see an increase in productivity. This is the way to do it. Ensure that you can understand your customer at a fundamental level and give them exactly what they're looking for. Because when you're able to allow customers to trust your business before you even sell to them, that's where the real magic happens. And with AI, with your own training data, you can give your customers exactly what they're looking for ethically by customizing your product, your service, and all of your messaging to give them exactly what they're looking for. And in doing so, you make a ton more money. Thank you, everyone.
I'm a little confused about whether it's a thing that I use to target a specific customer that I'm trying to sell, so it's customized to that one customer, or whether it's a tool that helps me analyze my target market and make my pitch better to that particular target market.
Absolutely. So it's a consulting service that very specifically frames it to the individual needs of every client, right? So if you have 4 different segmented ICPs, you can train an individual model
For each
based
ICP.
on...
Okay, so it's for the seller.
Yeah.
I see what you're saying. Yeah, that makes sense to me. Seems like it would be, like, on the one hand, I'm skeptical if it works, but on the other hand, if it works, then clearly I want it, right? So that's good. Because then you just have to prove that it works by, maybe prove it for one ICP, and then there's also even a Capital Factory company that helps agencies pitch better, meaning like make their RFPs better, and it really works. Like they get like a 3x higher accept rate on Elance for the RFPs there, based on these AI like tunings. So, what is it called? I'll think of it. So it seems like that does work. Like it seems like AI can help you pitch and sell your shit better. And there's an example. So I don't know, like overall, like the fact that my question goes to, man, does it really work is a good sign? Because that means I'm not asking, do I even want it? The answer is yes. Does it work?
Thank you so much.
Yeah, awesome. And same thing. I've seen it before, so I don't have any new feedback for you, but good job. All right, we'll wrap it for today. And thank you to everybody that pitched. We will have a winner for today, and who gets $100. And I think it's going to be the first one, actually. I appreciate you coming up and doing that and getting us to all do this, even though we weren't going to go do it. So thank you for speaking up and getting us to pitch, and for getting up and giving your pitch for the first time. And I think hopefully you can learn from it and keep tweaking it. So send your Venmo or other way of getting paid to Anna or Matt, and we'll take care of you. All right, so Jason and I are going to come up here now. And switch over. Yeah, yes. No, she still needs that one too. Yes. One is for them, and one is for the podcast. Awesome. Well, for next week, like I mentioned, we'll have 2 other real venture capital partners, who are actually investors, that you'll be pitching to. It's $1,000 on the line, and I hope there'll be a lot of people that sign up, and so that we'll have to prioritize the list. So please sign up in advance so that we don't have to. It really helps us plan for everything. And that's just pitch.longhornstartup.com. And we're going to be promoting it a bunch this week online and other places across the university, so that it's open to everybody to sign up and pitch as well. All right. So for this week, and as I mentioned, it's not Diane Eisner next week. It's Gordon and Lawton. So double trouble. Go to the next slide. And to Jason. So I am so glad to have Jason here. Jason's closing out the semester for our speakers. It's been a pretty great semester. We had you've had just some awesome people up here. I hope you realize that. You're so lucky to get people like them to come spend their time with you here, and for you to, I try to make sure that you guys get plenty of time for you to ask questions, and then I just kind of kick it off. But Jason is, as I told you last week, I've worked with 1,000 entrepreneurs. That's an easy number to say, like at least that. And he's one of the ones that I admire and respect the most, and that I've certainly personally I've gotten to work with really closely, and who's been also been not coincidentally one of the most successful, and there's and not only just in making a company that makes money, which is a really good start. That's a great start for being successful, and I personally have benefited from a lot. But also just making a great company that's just a great company, like a great place to work and a great place for a whole bunch of people and a great company in our city, and that's WP Engine. But he going way back when he's actually from here in Austin. He went to UT Austin and studied computer science, as you heard him kind of name dropping a bit about earlier on. And he has been involved in a bunch of different businesses. He's bootstrapped businesses. He's built them up to millions of dollars in revenue and sold them. And then he's also raised millions of dollars in funding and then hundreds of millions of dollars in funding and built multiple unicorns. He's built a company that he sold that became a unicorn, and then he built a company that he built that is still is a unicorn, and he's still helping to run. And he's gone through all the different steps of kind of being a founder, being a CEO, bringing in a CEO to a company that he's already the CEO of, and moving into a CTO role or other role, and a lot of other things. He is a blogger. He's got, if there's anything you take away from this, it's go check out his blog. It's asmartbear.com. As we first met, many people would confuse us and think we were kind of both the same Austin guy, not because we really looked alike at all, but if you're going to mix up any two J names, Josh and Jason are actually apparently two that you would easily mix up. And then his company was Smart Bear, and me being Joshua Bear and like everything else, like it was quite confusing for a lot of people. I think people would walk up to me, they'd be like I did have a blog, but it was like not like he has a really good blog. Mine was like not, and people would call me, be like, oh, I love your blog, and I look at them, I'm thinking like they're talking about Jason's blog, aren't they? They're not really talking about my blog. But anyway, so you should go check out Jason's blog. It's awesome. He's been running it for a long time, and like a lot of the best companies, that's part of how he now is running a company that builds websites on WordPress, is because he was running a big website on WordPress that he was running it for himself and had this problem for himself, and it's been super successful. And then the video that you all watched was a talk that he gave many years ago, but has been a really popular talk about bootstrapping. So bootstrapping, hopefully you are kind of are familiar with this at this point, but is this idea of doing a startup without raising funding, without raising money from investors. And I think today there's more mixed options than ever. Sometimes you might bootstrap for a while and then raise funding. It's not necessarily one or the other. But that's a really interesting thing that Jason's been and I have both been on both sides of. So thank you, Jason, for spending your time with us today, because I'm sure there's a million other things happening that your more than 1,000 employees all over the world would love to talk to you about right now, or that your daughter or your family would. And so we're really lucky to have you here with us. So I want to let the students ask questions, make sure there's plenty of time for that. But I've had the fortune of getting to spend some time with you, so to maybe set the stage a little bit. I think it'd be great to just revisit a little bit of the beginnings of WP Engine. Hopefully you've all seen the WP Engine sign on the building downtown. They've got a big office downtown and have for a long time. But they have offices all over the world now, and maybe you can tell everybody what it does. Today is the pitch. I don't think it's that different than the pitch was when you started. And then, yeah, how you got the inspiration for it, how you got started.
Sure, okay. So at Smart Bear, that was my previous company. I started a blog because back then blogs were cool. And so I thought, this will be the company blog, which is why it was called A Smart Bear. And then everyone would write on it, and that would be our voice. And then no one wrote on it but me, which probably did explain something about the culture. But anyway, so I sold the company in 2007. That was like 6 years into that bootstrapping journey. And I left in 2009 because my wife was pregnant, and I was like, oh, I sold the company, it's been a long time, I could be at home. So I was a stay-at-home dad for a year, which was great. And writing on the blog was like this nice project where there was no deadlines and no requirements. I didn't need it to make money or anything like that. So it was a way to stay intellectually connected with the rest of the world in this weird time frame that you have when you have kids, in which your brain is scrambled and you can't think about anything. Y'all don't know anything about that, which is good. But then it got really popular, just because that's all I was doing, that and taking care of this little baby, and so then it started crashing every time I get on Hacker News, which is still a popular link sharing site. But I get on the front page, sometimes #1 every Monday, which is when I would post, because that link sharing site, the stuff I wrote, that's the kind of stuff those folks like. And so I would get there, and then the site would crash, and that's the worst possible thing, because that's where all the traffic is when you get on Hacker News. In fact, if you looked at my graph of traffic over like a year, you see these Hacker News spikes, right? And if you took that off, that was 98% of the traffic. So to crash then is like literally all of the traffic. It's the absolute worst possible case. So I was like, God dang. So I call up other bloggers and say, listen, what do you do to stay up when you get on Hacker News or Dig, and all these things that existed before you were born? And they were like, I don't know, but if you find it, tell me, because I need that. Right? So then I turned into a customer discovery mode, which is maybe something we can talk about, how to do that. And I talked to 50 potential customers, which took me like 4 months, because it takes forever to get people on the phone. And I found that there were 4 things, if I did them, people would give me 10 times as much money as they were currently spending on their site to do these things. And this is where the pitch is, right? This is all the lead up, so it's because obviously that's got to be the pitch. So now I have to pitch, and you can decide if it's any good, right? All right. So you have a website. It's really important that the website is fast. Why? Well, have you ever gone to a website on your phone, and it's a white screen, and then it takes so long to load that you get tired and hit back? That's like 1.2 seconds or something, right? You're like, ugh. So that's obviously, that website could have had a visitor but didn't. And here's the really cool part. They can't even measure that. Because since the site never loaded, the web analytics never loaded, so they can't even tell how much traffic they're losing based on that. And then on top of that, when you are slower, Google ranks you lower. All right, well, there goes all your traffic. And there's all this other data, like there's all this data from millions of things that say in e-com, people buy more and even have a larger shopping cart if your site's faster. I don't even know why, but there's a lot of data from millions of sources that say that. So a fast site equals money. Like if a fast site in e-com equals more money. A fast site in media means you get ranked higher, and they come there, which means the ads show, which equals money. Fast sites equal money in these different verticals. Holy crap, that's kind of important. So speed, that was the first thing. The second thing was scale, which is the problem I had. If you get a whole lot of traffic, it better still be fast and stay up. Duh. The third one is security. That one I don't even need to pitch you. It's kind of obvious. Of course, I need the site to be secure, so okay. That was a problem 14 years ago when I started WP Engine. Still, like, even more of a problem now. Used to be, by the way, pause pitch, it used to be that marketers would be like, security, that's what the tech guys do. And they'd say guys too, because that's what they thought, that's what they figured. And nowadays, that's not what marketers think, just FYI. Now marketers are like, that's our brand. If we're insecure, our brand is hurt, and that's me, because I'm marketing, I'm brand. So actually, marketers care about security too, interestingly now. Okay, unpause pitch. And then the fourth thing is service. Like, there are places you could go get a website from, like Amazon or Rackspace, and they won't talk to you. You say, oh, my site's not working, it's broken, it went down, it's slow. And they're like, That's not what we do. In fact, with Amazon, you can't get anyone to even say that. So not everyone needs service, but if you want it, like, it's going to cost some money and you can't get it normally. So you want to go someplace where there's service. So those are the 4 things. So people that would spend, for example, $5, $7 at GoDaddy, they'd be willing to spend $50 or $100 a month if we could have those 4 things. So that was it. And even today on our website, if you go to it, you'll notice things like speed, security, scale, and service all being things above the fold, because it's still why people sign up every day. Now there's a lot more reasons. We have, for example, we have some of the most popular development tools for websites that there is. Some of them are used by millions, plural, people. So like really popular stuff that we also do. So now there's like more reason than that. But that's still a reason why a lot of people sign up, and it was the original reason. Yeah, I think there is a pitch online you can see, which is pretty much what I just said without the pausing, and it's 3 minutes, and it was at some kind of pitchy Capital Factory thing. I forget what it was, but it's still up there, so you can see that.
From the early days.
Yeah, from like 5 months in.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So everything that you did and everything that you do is within the WordPress ecosystem. So can you talk a little bit about the trade-offs and like the decision to do something where you're kind of like, a little bit within, there's lots of other places where you can be in an ecosystem, and in the App Store ecosystem, and the Google Play ecosystem, and other places like that. But you're in the WordPress ecosystem. And one, just what are the trade-offs of that? And then two, what is that? How does that relate? Something I've asked you, I know many times before, at other places, to being in a market that's just booming and growing. How has the WordPress market grown and changed over the time of WP Engine?
Yeah, so those are a couple of questions in there, all good. So being dependent on an ecosystem is certainly a two-edged sword. The obvious reason is you get to tap into whatever's going on in the ecosystem, which is easier. You usually know how to get customers better because you go to, there are word camps where people in WordPress go, so you can go there. There's websites online where you can be. If you have software, there's a plugin repository you can put it in.
And today, this might be building on ChatGPT.
Yeah, ChatGPT.
Right,
well,
that's an ecosystem.
It has a place. I don't know if it has a place, but Shopify has a store, Wix has a store. Lots of these platforms have stores and places that you can be in to do that. Salesforce, since someone brought it up, has a huge multi-billion-dollar ecosystem around it. In fact, one of Salesforce's biggest KPIs that they report to the street is how much money their ecosystem, not them, is generating. Because they know that if everyone else is making literally billions, tens of billions of dollars off of Salesforce, they're fine. Because that means everyone in that ecosystem is all aligned to make Salesforce last forever, because their own businesses depend upon it. See, that's what a good ecosystem means, is that both businesses are making more money than they could if they weren't participating. So they both have a vested interest in the other continuing. That's the difference between a real economic ecosystem and just we're a group and we talk. That's not the same thing, and that's why. So anyway, so being part of one like that has that advantage. The downside is whatever the downside is of that ecosystem, you also inherit it. So, okay, you're in the Salesforce ecosystem, but that means you're not in the HubSpot one, and that's really growing right now. Or the downside of WordPress is WordPress has a bad reputation in a lot of ways. Maybe it's not secure. Of course, that was one of our value propositions. But, there's all these new things like Wix and Squarespace and Shopify, and if you're a restaurant, you should use Toast, and there's all this stuff that isn't WordPress. Well, if you're tied to WordPress, then you're just not in all those things. There's a new kind of technology called headless that's disrupting everything, including WordPress. We have a product for that because that's part of your strategy, is to take things that are disrupting you and say, maybe we should have a product for that so that it becomes a growth vector instead of a disruption. So that's a thing we're doing. But still, that's the problem. So Twitter is a perfect example. There was a lot of startups that had stuff based on Twitter, and then who came in and said I think I want to break everything now, and then did. And so then all these startups are just literally poof overnight, they're gone.
And actually, well before Elon bought Twitter, there was an ecosystem of Twitter apps, alternate clients, and a lot of them, right?
Yeah, hundreds.
And Twitter supported it and allowed it and promoted it. And then one day decided, actually, we want to control all the apps.
Yep.
There's going to be no more apps. There's just going to be the Twitter app.
Yep.
And
Yep.
those all just disappeared.
Zing is another great example. Did games on Facebook, multi-billion-dollar company, went public, and then Facebook goes, we don't want to do that anymore, and then that was it. Like it's, you know, so the good news is, but if you're a popular game on Facebook, that you could be $1 billion revenue company. Oh, that's kind of cool, unless Facebook changes their mind. So that's the two-edged sword. So should you do that? Well, who knows? Nobody knows. But I think overall it is easier. So although you carry that risk, here's the good news: you know exactly what the risk is. That's the risk, that the ecosystem falls on hard times, or there's a crazy person that takes over and does stuff, or already was owning it and does stuff. So
Just
okay.
a couple quick other examples. Solana, right? Building on a Solana blockchain, right? That'd be another example of you're picking an ecosystem, right? So you're gonna have this is gonna happen all over the place, whether it's your whole business or it's a core technology or part of what you do.
So there's things you can do. And first of all, you can decide not to do it. But one of the things you can do is just decide that being in this ecosystem is phase one. It's how we're going to get off the ground and make money, get profitable, or if you're bootstrapping, or raise money if you're raising money. But our larger goal is to support many different things so that the failure of any one is not fatal. And so this is stuff like what Buffer and Hyperion do, where they're like, well, you'll post on Twitter, but also you can post on LinkedIn, and also post on Instagram, and et cetera. And so then if Twitter blows up, it's like, well, you still wanted to post on all those other ones, right? And so that's how they have some resilience to that. So that's an answer. This is really common with things like Shopify plugins. They start supporting BigCommerce and WooCommerce and all these things. And also in CRM, people do start supporting HubSpot. Okay, so you can see how, all right, you could have that in mind, that I'm going to start here and use the ecosystem because it's easier to get started, but then expand. We very intentionally don't do that. And that helps us with focus. Also, the WordPress ecosystem is so big that trying to rail against it is really not that important. WordPress is now 43% of every website on Earth. And we ourselves host more than 2% of every website on Earth. And so it's not that can't
Just
ever
think
disrupt.
about that for a minute. Like,
Yeah, you
that's
can
a
let that sink in
staggering
for a
number.
second of the scale that we're now
Right?
at. Pretty fun, right? Yeah, we can talk about
All those
numbers.
people that say like if we just got 1% of like the whole market.
Yeah.
Yeah, you see that on a slide deck all the time. Like that's like a really popular thing to do, and like
Yeah.
still most people never ever achieve that. But they're like,
Yeah.
no, we got 2%.
Yeah.
Like of the whole world.
Yeah. So what's interesting about that is, it's not that WordPress can't be disrupted or we can't. Of course so. But what doesn't happen is that it folds immediately. Twitter can, because one person can literally turn it off. But WordPress is a completely free open source piece of software. So even if something happened with WordPress, no one's site changes. Now, the future is bleak. You got to do something about it. But right now, nothing happens. And you can look in the past and see how things with that kind of scope and reach in the world, when they actually do get disrupted, it doesn't disappear. It like slowly declines, and it's very sad, but it doesn't just disappear. So like, I don't know if anybody here uses Microsoft Word, but it was literally 90+% of everyone on Earth used Microsoft Word. That's been sort of irrelevant for 20 years, 15 years. It still makes, so Microsoft with Office still makes about $120 million a day in profit. And they've been irrelevant for 15 years. So it's like, well, okay, so that's a pretty good decline, I guess. So once thing has a momentum, you're kind of okay. So there's no reason for us to go look outside. Although we did with this headless. So actually, that's an interesting question: is when do you decide to do like a second product? In what way? How do you decide that? That's another interesting thing. But yeah.
And so the growth, you said it's 42% now. What was it when you started? And how much of that growth of WordPress do you think, like, what a percentage would you attribute to your success? Like how much of the success of your company growing was just that you're in this market that was growing? And I think you guys did so much right. It's not like I'm trying to question your success, but like, what was the change, and how much did that affect it?
Yeah, so even when we were starting out, it was 11%. And I used to say in my pitch was, if I was talking to an investor, was, the internet is so big compared to us, or just in general, that it's sort of infinity. And so WordPress is 11% of the internet. So WordPress is like infinity, but minus 1 0. We're good. Like, it's just the market's so big, who cares?
Like, I remember at the very beginning of WP Engine, like, we were saying, wow, it's 11% of the internet. Like, that was huge.
It is huge. It's still,
like, oh my God, look, it's 11% of the internet, right? And now it's 40-something% of the internet. Like, it's so much more.
1% of the internet is incredibly massive. That's,
Yeah.
It's insane. So yeah, it was already obviously really, really big, and it was already obviously growing. So that was an easy thing to invest into. Now, how much of our success is due to that? That's actually easy to answer because there were competitors at the time and later, both. And so there's all these in situ experiments of other people who were riding the same wave, same community, starting around the same time. At least
Great
two of them were,
perspective.
and others started later. And on the one hand, they started later, so they had to catch up. On the other hand, they started later, so all of our mistakes and that we figured out, they could just skip. For example, we acquired one of these companies later, and we asked them, how did you come up with your pricing? And they said, oh, we saw that you changed it once, so we just copied you. We figured you knew what you were doing. That's the second mover advantage. It's pretty good. So, okay, so there's people that came with us at the very beginning, and there's people, they started later, but man, they got to avoid a lot of pain. And so in all cases, it's a good experiment to ask, how did it go? So of the three of us who were really at the beginning, we outstripped Pagely. I think when Pagely sold to GoDaddy, which was only like 2 years ago, or yeah, I think 2 years ago, we were something like 50 times bigger. So like, there's just no question about it. And the other one like really petered out even worse and also sold and never went anywhere. So, and then there's others that came in wait, but like again, this one that we bought was many times smaller. So the point being like, all these companies were successful. Why? Probably because we were in a good market. But why were we like this incredible success? Well, you know, we obviously executed well. So that's how I sort of suss it out. But what it goes to show, what it boils down to, and this is, I think this isn't the talk, but you would know because you just took the quiz because you don't take enough tests. And and I think I said it in there, right? It was like picking a large growing market just makes it so much easier. Because look at all these companies, some of which did better than others, but they all grew because we were in a large growing market. So there you go, do that.
Yeah. And in my career, as I look back, I don't think I was nearly as like smart about it as I could have been. I was much more lucky than smart. And I didn't like do some analysis every time and figure out like, oh, this is but I could have done some of it. And I just fortunately fell into email, which I told you some of you about with my, when I went from one of the first classes. And that was a similar, like email was a big market that really grew over the time that it still probably is growing, but over the time that I was running that company, it boomed and grew. And then I moved to Austin, and Austin was a market that boomed and grew. And we did co-working, and co-working, there was a time when that really boomed and grew. And yet when we started, we didn't know how to set pricing, so we just made it up. And then WeWork came here, and WeWork was way bigger than us, and they had offices everywhere. So what did we do? We copied the WeWork pricing. We're like, well, they figured, we're like, oh shoot, like we charge more for desks and less for offices. They charge more for offices and less for desks. Like, oh, that actually kind of makes sense. Like, and they've done a lot more market research and other stuff. And we totally changed our pricing to basically match the much bigger competitor that had moved into the market with WeWork. And then most recently, it's government and defense. We're sitting here on this 8th floor with the Army and the Air Force and all these other groups here. And when you look at different trends, but when Jason and I met and our, the businesses that we were running, the email marketing company I ran and WP Engine are SaaS businesses. And SaaS B2B, like that used to be like a whole new thing. Like it's kind of like a well-documented, well-known thing now, right? It's pretty mature, and it's not like it's still useful. It's awesome. It's just much more, well-defined, as opposed to being like this like totally unheard of thing. Everybody, even the government, can use SaaS now, and whereas like now, robotics and space and healthcare and things that were harder to be innovative about before are bigger trends that are, we're seeing a lot because they're getting funded through a lot of these government things and other things like that. All right, let's open it up to some of you. What questions do y'all have for Jason? We'll start in the front. And he's going to bring you the microphone.
What are your thoughts on the, ChatGPT wrapper phenomenon where every Y Combinator startup is a GPT wrapper, and they just recently launched their own OpenAI launched their own software that allows you to very easily create your own GPT wrapper with no code, which just completely wipes out half the batch. So just what are your thoughts on that ecosystem, and as a university student, what should be my move to take advantage of this opportunity, especially with OpenAI launching this new thing just recently.
I have a lot of thoughts about this, and I'm sure we don't want to spend the whole time talking about AI either, but it is really relevant. So first of all, super easy to see it coming. Did you not think, like that ChatGPT is not going to get faster, cheaper? You do docs, have bigger windows, have more APIs.
Like they
cover different
announced you can
things.
put in more
Right.
data into the window. Like of course they were going to.
Yeah, like all this stuff is very easy to see. What are they going to do next? You can probably start listing some things they're probably going to do next and not be surprised. So to me, it was always obvious that like if you just wrap ChatGPT, then you're not doing anything yet, except you are probably getting some experience with AI and prompting and stuff, which is great. You're getting experience, so that's good. You're not building a company, but you're getting experience. So.
Or maybe another way to think about it is it's still more like you're building a service. Like it's like a tool that makes you into like a superpower service, but you haven't built some intellectual property that's like your own real tool.
So to me, the thing with AI, people, and we saw this in the pitches today, where people are like, this is the thing that does AI, that uses AI, and it's like, no, the customer never cares. The customer wants to do X, and you're going to do X better. Where the customer wants to do X and yours is so delightful and almost like magic. That's what it is. Now, how are you able to deliver that now? And no one was able to before, because AI. Right, AI is the how. AI is in the solution space of how to do it. But it's not the problem space, it's not the customer's thing. So like, in our space, a lot of people talk about AI about context. Of course, our customers are all making content online. So the problems are the same. I want to rank high in Google, I want to get more traffic, I want to sell more ads, I want to sell more product. It's the same problems. If AI can make me do that better, then that's what I want. But not because AI, but because I want to solve this problem still. And so I think people confuse that AI is somehow like a thing people want, as opposed to AI is a mechanism by which you could deliver a product people already need to do their job better or something, or increase their business or something. And this is now a new way that wasn't possible before. That's what AI is. Now, the next thing is like, I actually am super skeptical about all AI startups. Almost all AI startups for this reason. Normally, the way startups work is, the startup is able to pick something that they can attack that incumbents don't. They don't either because they cannot physically. They don't because it's a brand new tech and they can't keep up. They don't, they don't because they have a brand to protect and this is in a different space. They don't because of the law. Like taxis couldn't do Uber because the taxis actually tried to adhere to the law, and Uber's like, no, we'll just change that and just ignore it. Well, taxis weren't going to do that. Or risk, which that's a risk. And like if you're an established company, you just can't take legal risk. If it's illegal, you're like, oh well. But if it's a startup and it's illegal, you're like, who cares? Even paying taxes is like that. Startups don't pay taxes in Europe, but big companies have to. I mean, startups have to, they just don't, and it's okay, because no one's looking. So, these are all reasons. These are all things startups get. And so the old adage is that the startup has to get distribution, meaning sales, before the big incumbent realizes, wait, that's important, we should do it. And then they aim their huge guns at it, and then God help you. So, and usually you have many, many years because they're not paying attention or they don't know, or maybe the market you're targeting initially is tiny. So the big company can't target it because the big company can't spend tens of millions of dollars, which is what it costs to do anything at a big company. The littlest thing costs that. Well, if the market's only 100 million or even $1 billion, they probably can't afford to. It doesn't move the needle for them. Even if it worked out and they made $10 million, it doesn't even matter. It wasn't worth our time. But for a startup, it's like, I want $10 million of revenue, and then I'll figure out the next thing from there, which you will. And so for a startup, that's great. So these are all reasons. All the reasons I just gave are different kinds of reasons why a big company wouldn't do something that a startup it's very rational for a startup to do. In AI, nothing I just said is true. Uh-oh. Like all the little things that a startup can have in its corner to compete against an incumbent, not true. Maybe we're in a little niche that the big companies aren't looking at. AI, a little niche that big companies aren't looking at. There isn't a big company that's not investing hundreds of millions of dollars a year in AI. Not one. Oops, it's not a niche, it's not small. The incumbents are paying very much attention and they're investing like crazy. And they're even hiring smart people to do it. They don't have like whoever they can get. They're hiring really good people because like I would want to work at Intercom.io if I was going to do chatbots because they have all the data and all the customers. So that's way more fun. The big customers have the data. You got to have the data because data is gold. You got to have the data or you can't do the AI and they have the data. That's the fun place to be. It's OpenAI, Microsoft, Google. Like, these are the fun places to be if you're really good at this. Oh, crap, because usually startups are the fun place to be. You see the problem? So the problem is all the ways that startups usually have their advantages and their head starts, none of them are there for you. So you really are competing with all the big companies immediately. And so what are you doing? Wrapping ChatGPT? ChatGPT is going to do that, and all the big guys are doing it too anyways. So like, what are you doing? So that is why I'm super pessimistic on all these AI startups, whether they're in YC or not. Because I don't get it. I don't understand what's different. I don't understand why it's not just immediately taken over by whatever. And I don't understand how they go up against an incumbent. And usually, that's not my argument. Usually, I think that's a stupid argument. What if Google decides to do it? Oh my God, Google can't decide to do anything. We spend an amount of money that you can't believe every month with Google. And I'm telling you, they can't do anything. They can't even do AI right. Like, they're always behind OpenAI. You kidding? You know how much money, you know how much they're pounding the table, how angry they are about that? We invented this stuff. Yeah, I know, and you're behind, and you can't even catch up. And you're Google, and you're spending literally billions of dollars a year. And you have all the smart people. What the hell? So here's a startup that's going to what? Beat Bard? Google can't beat Bard. It's like, what? So anyway, this is an environment where, so normally if people are like, Google's going to copy you, I'm like, Google can't do anything. No, they're not. Like, this just, to me, that's a naive counterpoint. But not with AI, and that's why. Explaining why. Actually, with AI, yeah, everyone is doing it. What are you doing? Now it's a good question, because all your legs are cut out from under you as a startup. Uh-oh. Now, there could be good answers. It's not going to be like, we'll just figure it out. Like, no, that's not the answer. Not here, not this time. But there could be good answers. So one answer is we picked a vertical that other people aren't picking. Good. One answer is we really do have special model training and stuff because reasons, and we really do have smart stuff. It's just rarely the case. Usually it's a wrapper, like you said. But if you really did, maybe. Also, everyone's obsessed with LLMs. I don't understand. LLMs are great, but before LLMs, there was a lot of AI, and they weren't LLMs. There's a ton of AI to do that LLMs cannot. LLMs can't play chess. You can ask LLMs about, like, what's the best opening if I'm not very good and I don't want to memorize a lot of lines, but I want to play black pretty well. And it'll have some good ideas. But then you're like, let's play E4, and it's like bishop, some move that doesn't even make sense. You're like, wow, you can't do anything, nothing at all. Like, the LLMs aren't good at playing chess. So, like, there's so many problems to solve to apply AI that's not an LLM. So maybe that's a good idea while everyone's attention's on LLMs, or a mixture of some kind. If LLMs are good at that, and this other thing is good at that, and everyone's confused and doesn't know what to do, well, there you go. Another possibility is distribution. So that is what the incumbents have, is they have customers and they can sell to them. But if you have it, like, there's people right now that have, like, chat with your PDF apps, right? Now, the ones that are bad, okay, they're dead. But there are some that have a lot of users, like maybe 100,000 free users and 10,000 paying users. I'm not convinced they're dead. I don't think those 10,000 paying users just go, well, I'm going to just cancel and go to the ChatGPT, because ChatGPT is doing 100 things. They're not going to be the best PDFs. They're just doing all kinds of, you can tell, they're just doing stuff. Yeah, but they're just doing things, right? But somebody's like, no, I'm good at PDFs, and every week I'm better, and I'm better, and I'm better, and I'm listening to the customers, I'm doing better. That's not what ChatGPT is doing. So if that's what you're doing, that's a good answer. There you go. You're gonna be really good at PDFs. They're not. They're just gonna, like, throw features away, or throw features out there and see what happens. So I believe in that. So there's all sorts of things that I do believe in, but like you said, exactly as you said, being a rapper and that's what I do, that's what I don't believe in. And you've got to me, have something really tangible, because you don't have the usual things.
Does WP Engine have any ChatGPT integrations?
So
is there an AI feature?
We're starting to play with some AI stuff in, so we have a search, which is good, a good product. We have amazing pitches for this, by the way, like, because these are all real. Like, we'll have a customer. One of our customers is helps you is like a healthcare things for pediatrics, and so this has really happened. A person came to the website and searched for poison, like, what do I do about poison, like, for kids, but they misspelled poison, so there was no search results. I think we need to solve that problem. I think you need better search that doesn't, like, understands what you want, like it's life or death, to just find the damn search. Another fun fact is if someone searches for something in an e-commerce store, by the way, we have tens of thousands of people doing e-commerce. So when I say this, like, we have a lot of data about this. If you search for something in e-commerce, you're 3 times more likely to buy. So when someone searches for something, how good of an experience do you want that to be right then? I mean, this is it. This is your very best customer it could possibly be. This experience needs to be the best ever. You should invest in that. So anyway, that's what our search product does, these things. Anyway, because it's a search product, it means it's indexed the whole site. Since it's indexed the whole site, we could maybe do AI on it because we've got all your data. So we have a vector database behind there, and we da. So what we're trying to do is so some of our agency partners, so people who build the websites, they have people that are like, ooh, we want a vector database, or we want it to plug right into ChatGPT or whatever, so we can build whatever the hell they want, whatever the things. So we're starting with something quite technical, which is just to give them the APIs they already want. Since we already have the data, we've already indexed it. So that is a commodity. That's not interesting. That's just convenience. You're here already. Here's the API. We saved you a tiny bit of time. That wouldn't be a startup on its own, but it is for us an add-on. Hey, you're already a customer. You pay us a little extra, we'll do it. See, so that's not a startup on its own, but it is a good product.
It's a good feature.
Yeah, it's a good feature, right, for us. Then on top of that, we do have ideas for like personalization. So like here, the joke I always make is, WordPress search is terrible, as I just said. Our search is way better. But you know what would be even better? If I asked for blah, 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 what would be even better than giving me like the top 5 articles on that is just to write the article I wish you had already written with that prompt. Using your content. Just write me the answer to the damn thing. Don't make me look at the 5 things, just write me the damn answer. But
Turn my website into an LLM.
Yeah, just turn. Now, are there startups doing that? Of course. So once again, if this was just a startup idea, but it's not. We are the incumbent. We have a zillion customers. So like if we do it and it's just a feature that we can add in, that's smart because we have the distribution. We have the customer base. If we make this, we can sell it to 200,000 people with a Salesforce, with hundreds of people in a Salesforce and all this marketing automation, and we can do that tomorrow if we have the product. That's our advantage. So that's why for us, something that's like a feature that other startups are doing, that's why it's good, because like, yeah, but we have the distribution, so we can make lots of money even though it's the same thing you're doing. The startup's the one who doesn't have the distribution, and so it's like, well, if you don't have the people to sell it to, and it's not different than what we're doing, that's the problem.
Yeah, I just really want to just focus on that point, Jason. You heard it multiple times there about, one of the big advantages that big companies have is that they have customers and that they have the data from the customers. Like most startups are trying to guess what the customers want. It's actually hard to talk to customers. It's hard to get them to tell you. They can't just open their own database and search and be like, how many of these people sell stuff online? And what's their average amount they spend on their website? And they can just look. They have all that data. And if they want to launch something new, again, they're not launching it to nobody. So another example of that for me with AI that I saw recently come up was, the idea of having AI search all your email and write your emails for you. Well, lots of people pitched that idea to me, and it's a kind of obvious idea, but it's a really hard thing for anyone to go do because, first of all, the level of trust and things you need to do for me to give you all my email is really, really high. But when Superhuman, who already has all my email, adds a feature that says, I want to do AI, and you can turn it on, and then I'm going to write your emails for you. It makes a lot of sense for them to go do it, and it's a great feature for Superhuman. It's not a company all by itself. Who's the next question?
There we go. Thank you for your feedback earlier, Mr. Cohen. I was wondering how your technical background helped you as an entrepreneur earlier in your journey. As I'm going to probably major in something semi-technical, so I kind of want to know what I'm missing out on.
I mean, in the era of AI, you only need to be semi-technical because the AI writes have it. I've been using Copilot, and it's scary. So that's the good news. Obviously, it helps because you can make the product in the first place. Otherwise, you have to join up with someone who's going to make the product. But it also can be a hindrance because what you like doing and what you know how to do is make the product. So everything else that has to be done in a business, which are many, usually the technical founder doesn't do it enough or it's bad or something. So like the classic thing is, man, we're not growing enough. I'll add a feature. when one more feature is not why you're not growing. What you need to do is marketing, sales, get out there, talk to customers, figure things out. Yeah, but you don't want to do that. You're just this introvert Vulcan person that wants to go back in Visual Studio Code and see how cool Copilot is, which it is. But that's not actually solving any of the problems facing the company. And so if you search on Twitter for stuff like indie hackers, it's all that. It's all like, I finally got to $1,600 in MRR after 4 years, and I got this cool feature coming out. It's like, I guarantee you that cool feature coming out is not what you should be doing after 4 years. And, so it can be a hindrance too, because you're focused on just one aspect of the business. But on the other hand, if you're on the other end and you can't make the product, then you gotta get join up with someone who makes the product, and that's hard. Because how do you interview someone like that? It's like me trying to interview a pancreatic surgeon. What do I ask to validate whether this person's good at it? I don't know. You know where it is? It's kind of roughly, directionally. I don't know. So that's how a lot of people are trying to hire someone technical. It's like, I don't know. They said a lot of words I don't know. So no matter what, it's hard is the point. Like everything's a two-edged thing. Everything has advantages and then problems and everything in life. And so I think useful to ask yourself, like, what am I interested in and have at least above average skill in? Those are good questions, because those are places where you can invest in that and then get something, do something with that. But the answer will never be I'll just be good at all these things. That won't be the case. So it's interesting to find, and it's hard. It's a lifelong pursuit usually to find like where those things are for you. This is what I love to do. This is what I'm good at. So how does that make, where can I be special? We were just talking about how the company can be special, but you have to do that for yourself. How am I special? How am I like extra good at whatever? And so therefore, how do I plug that in? And what will that mean in the rest of the puzzle that will have to be put together with any kind of endeavor I do that's a team, like a company? What puzzle pieces might I need since I have my thing? And then that's where the great teams come from. So like my second company, WP is my fourth company. My second company, IT Watchdogs, I was like this perfect puzzle piece with my co-founder, where I was the technical kid at the time. The joke was that I couldn't rent cars. He had to rent cars for me, which is true. But he was old. I think he was always. I think he was born old. He was just old, and I think he was probably 60 or something. And but he's so like magical at sales and marketing and just a lot of the kind of business sense, just magical. And so I just learned so much from him in those ways. It was just this perfect puzzle piece of like, I could code so fast you couldn't, the feature would come out before you could finish talking about what it ought to be. And then, but he was sitting there like, and it was just this magical thing. So I think that aspect of like, what can I do that's magical? And there's kind of two kinds of ways that you can be magical. One is that you are just top 0.1% at something. So that's like, I'm going to be an Olympian, or I'm going to be, right? And that's a way. It's really fun, really cool if that's possible. For most people, that's just like, you're not going to be that in anything. So it's okay, but like probably not the best answer. The other way is to be pretty darn good at like 2 or 3 things. And that in that intersection, I say unique. Of course, it doesn't have to be literally unique in the whole world. No, but special. I like the word special. Like in that intersection, that's almost no one. And so, like a great example of that is that insane Dilbert guy that like absolutely went nuts. Or maybe he was always nuts, but now we know. But if you set that aside for a minute, just like you can like Wagner's music and also not like the Holocaust. You can do both. So one of the great things he says, regardless of what you think about him, is he says I'm above average. Like I'm above average at drawing, but I'm not like an artist. I'm not good at drawing, which is true, right? It's like, but I'm like better than most people, but not great. And I'm pretty funny, but like every crappy stand-up is funnier than me. But I'm pretty funny compared to most people. And I've worked at these kind of horrible companies. I have this experience, and like most artists have never, been in a code review session. That's just an experience that those folks don't have. So in that intersection of having that work experience, being pretty funny, drawing pretty well, I'm a cartoonist that no one is like. See, he's not best in the world at anything in particular, but that intersection was special. So that's what I mean. So usually that's the answer, just because it doesn't have to be, but usually it is, yeah. And so I know I just went off on this tangent, but like, by the way, the company's the same way. The company could be the best product in the whole world at X. It could be, but maybe that's not very likely. But maybe it's like, but in this market segment and for this kind of thing and at this price point, and also it's well designed, or maybe it's not, or it's something. There, we're actually unique. Now, is that intersection big enough for the company? I don't know, but at least you'll dominate it, and it's a place to begin. Maybe it's already big, like ours was. Maybe it's not, but like it's a place to begin and get off the ground, and then you can expand from there because you got a foothold. That's pretty good too. So I think this general notion of when people say be unique, okay, but that's hard. And so here's a way to think about it that's a little bit easier to, maybe possible even to construct. That doesn't sound so impossible to make. And it starts with you and where you are. There could be a great, I know I just keep going, but there could be a great strategy for a company. You hit this market, you make that product, you sell in this way, and it is the best idea ever. But if you can't execute it, it doesn't matter. It's still a bad strategy for you. So that maybe our competitors were like that. I mean, I don't know because I can't. Maybe our competitors are like, hey, we should be in this and we should grow this way, but they're like not good at sales. There was one of them was never good at sales, for example. So like they should have just never tried that. That just wasn't them. Just that wasn't the right strategy for them, even though it was the right strategy for somebody. The reason I'm bringing this up is it's always a good question. How do I build a strategy? What's a good strategy for that? It's kind of topics I like. And it still comes back to you. It still comes back to you and where you're strong and who you are. And it still comes back to that. Because even if it's a great strategy and not for you, it's bad strategy. So it still comes back to you. Where you find joy? What are you good at? Maybe it's some kind of intersection-y thing. That's the answer. And that's where you could thrive. That's where you could do at school. That's where you might have a job later. And something that's in there so that you're thriving like crazy because you found you're in the right place, as it were, and you know what that is. Or if you build a company, you're building in the right way with the right culture or the right market or right strategy. Right means many things, but among them is it right for you? And you'll already know. So it's just such a huge, important thing to try to suss out, even though it's very hard to do. And that's why, and that's how you can apply it to things.
So turning that back on yourself, you studied computer science. You were the young whiz kid programmer who couldn't rent a car. With the other person was the business guy. Then you were the CEO at some point, and you were the business guy.
Different company, but yeah.
Too, right? Yeah, so different companies, right? And you are a writer, and through that, a marketer. Clearly, like you market your website, you market your blog, and get lots of people to read it, and we're marketed your company in different unique ways, and so you have this convergence of some of these unique qualities that all fit WP Engine, right?
I'm not a very good marketer of my blog. In fact, this comes up all the time where people are like, "Dude, your SEO is like horrible. They're so easy. If you just do this, just do that." I'm like, yeah, but I kind of like the way the title is. It's my title, so I don't care. It's like, what? You're like, well, I just want it to be what I think is good. So I just, and I just don't want to do that. And like, we should A/B test. Like, there should be a TLDR on top, but you should test it. And it's like, yeah, you're right. I should. I was like, I've been writing for 16 years. I never A/B tested anything ever. That means I'm a bad marketer, really. But I just rely on like, well, if there's a lot of meat there and it's very honest, then I feel like people will maybe like to share it because of that. And like it's true, but they probably would have been 10 times bigger now if I was also good at marketing. So maybe it's despite not being as good. But yeah, I do have an intersection, no doubt. There's no doubt about that. I was also like a top whatever developer. Like I really, even today, there's things at the company where it's like, oh, we need to do this. And it's just like, we got Jira tickets everywhere. It's going to take months. It's just like, no. And I have a PR up at the end of the day with it done. So I still have that in me. I don't do it very much, but it's still there. And so I really did have that, I think. But then it's turned into like, oh, but like, I was also on the debate team in high school, and okay, so like I can do that. And actually like talk about things and articulate them, and now I'm good at writing. I wasn't at the beginning. If you go back, it's not nearly as good. So over many years, it got better. Okay, fine. And yeah, so then there's an intersection of like writing and the other thing about writing is it makes you have to figure out what you think. Even though no one reads it, it's fine. Like, you had to work out, and as you're writing it, you realize that's stupid or like contradictory, and now your thoughts get better and clearer. And like, part of why I'm able to say all this right now, like just a minute ago, I was saying like, hey, so you've got to like find what you love and what you're good at and what is needed. I have a whole article about that, which is actually one of the more popular ones because I have this framework about that. That's why I was able to go like this and give you this shit, because like, well, I thought about it a lot, I wrote about it, then I did a talk about it, then I edited what I wrote. So now I have wisdom, but like not after, I mean, who knows how many hours of like wrestling with the idea. So writing gives you that. So, okay, so if I write, then I'm going to get all these benefits like that. So then, you have all these great thoughts. Yeah, but through some more basal thing, like deciding to spend 1 million hours writing, which helps you work it out. So that ends up being something unique. That's true.
So one of the other things that you're really good at, I know from experience, is, and you mentioned customer development. Ash Myra was our first speaker of the semester, as always. So that early in the semester, we heard Ash talk about lean startup and customer development. And so Jason was referencing that a little bit earlier. And a big part of customer development is listening and being kind of ruthlessly objective, like being able to like not hear what you want to hear. And I feel like that is one of your superpowers. Like, you are so good at customer development, and I saw you do that with WP Engine, and I've seen you do it other times. And one of the reasons, to me at least, it seems like you're so good at it, is that you are so ruthless with your, kind of being honest with yourself about what you're listening and feedback and asking good questions. So so understanding that they did kind of read some of Ash's blog posts, and Ash came and talked about Lean Startup earlier on. Can you expand a little bit more about customer development and why, what's your secret sauce? Why are you so damn good at it?
I can tell you, because I can tell you exactly how to do it, which gets you out of your head and makes it more objective like that. So I'll tell you the answer. Now, on the subject of lean, so Eric Ries, is the lean inventor, and that, what is it called? The Lean Startup book is Eric Ries. So Eric was an angel investor in WP Engine, and I remember talking to him and saying like, hey, you like can never make another company, right? And he's like, yeah. So why is that? Why can he never make a company? His name is on the Lean Startup book. Yeah.
If it fails, then everything he's done before is undone.
If it fails, that's the end of the movement. Because it's not repeatable. Which, by the way, it's not. And that wouldn't necessarily mean the method is bad, but it would be very, very bad for the movement.
Don't go prove it wrong.
Right. So that's ironic that if you're successful at something like that, like maybe it closes tons of doors. Interesting. Anyway, so customer development. So here's how I think about it. First of all, I think that the big problem that you do is when you go do customer development, you turn into sales mode instead. You go there, hey, do you have this problem? You do? Great. Listen, let me tell you about my thing. It does this, it does that. 45 minutes later, after beating them to death with all your things, so you ask, like, is this good? And they're like, yeah, I guess. It's like, now, even if they mean it, all you've proved is that if you spend 45 minutes beating someone to death, maybe they would say that they would use it, which isn't very validating. And what have you learned exactly? So to me, like, that's the first thing is like, it's not a sales pitch. You're not convincing them of anything. That's the first thing. You're trying to learn, you're trying to suck information out of them. That's the mindset, is like, how do I suck what's out of your head? And so you're never selling ever. So here's the method that I do. First of all, the first step is I ask, like, what am I trying to find out? Like, I'm out here trying to find something out. So what is it? Is it, I want to know what their day is like, how much money do they have, what did they spend on? Where do they buy stuff? What words do they use to describe these things? Like, you might say, I have a Salesforce thing with LLMs, but maybe they say, man, my salespeople, they just spend hours like digging around with freaking Guru and stuff, and like, they still don't know what's going on. Okay, so the language here is, do your sales guys spend hours in Guru and they still don't know what's going on with the customer? I'm just trying to repeat back their own words, because that's what they say. It doesn't matter. You say, all that data in the accounts table in Salesforce, you can extract it. Like, yeah, the customer never said any of that. That's not the right way, right? So, like, are you trying to learn their language? So, what are you trying to learn here? That's the start. Then the question is, what questions would I then ask in order to find out? but you're going to tune these questions so that you're not leading the victim along. So for example, WP Engine, I figured security is probably important to people. So here's a bad question. So, people get hacked all the time online. What do you do about that? Leading the witness? That's not the question. The question is something like, what do you do today about web security? Because the answer is probably nothing. Or, what do you think about web security, if anything? Or, do your client, if you're talking to an agency, do your clients ever ask you or have requirements about security? It's just open-ended, like, what's up? No implication that it should be this or that, because otherwise you're leading the witness. Now you're learning something. Open-ended is good too. What do you think about security? Like, what? That's the most least specific. Like, what are they supposed to say? They're just gonna say stuff. Exactly. They're gonna dump out of their head without any kind of angle on it. You're gonna just get dumps, and so you'll just hear crap like you didn't even know you wanted to ask because you just let it be open-ended. And so that's good. So questions. So the way I literally did this was have a spreadsheet with these goals, and then wrote these questions, and then edited them to not lead the witness, right? And so I skipped a step really. So you need to have your own hypotheses, because that's how an experiment works. Is you write down a hypothesis and you test it. What's not an experiment is you just go and then get stuff and you're like, what does that mean? That's not an experiment. That's like fishing or something. I don't know what it is. An experiment is you write down what you think is true. So then it's really obvious when you are wrong. So I wrote down things like, people really care about security and will spend a lot of money to do something about it. I wrote down, people use password managers when they have to manage 20 people's websites, because otherwise they wouldn't be able to keep track of all those passwords. I wrote these down. These are my hypotheses. All wrong. Because then when I ask stuff like, hey, how do you manage 20 websites? Because there's the opening question, like, oh, it's easy. I just have a Word document with the passwords and I just copy and paste them in. That's the kind of answers I would get. Like, oh, so that's not what I thought. But sometimes I was right. Sometimes it was like, how many websites do you make in a year? That I was pretty much right. How would I know that if I didn't write it down first? Then I know where I'm being surprised. Surprise equals learning. And where maybe I'm getting confirmatory evidence. So every time I did an interview, I would have all this yes, no, against, and new things I didn't know to ask for that I would add to the list. New things. Oh, they said this. That's interesting. So now I have a new hypothesis. I need new questions for the hypothesis. And I'm going to now do that. So I just kept going. Now, what I find is one of two things occur. One thing is you keep talking to people and you keep getting different answers about everything. In other words, it's not converging. So if you're into calculus, the div is positive. It's going like this. And you're like, well, it's not going anywhere. It's going everywhere. And so that just means this isn't a solid idea. You surely have some good little ideas in there. You have some nuggets in there that's surely good, or you wouldn't be talking to them. But this is not a cohesive business concept yet, because you can't find it. On the other hand, and I had that before I did WP Engine. I had another idea, and I did this method, and that's what happened. And I was like, ugh. And here's what would happen. People would say, oh, that's a great idea. You know what you should do? And because everyone wants to tell you what to do. You should charge tens of thousands of dollars a month. You should sell it to big agencies because this is what they're going to do with it. Blah, blah, blah. Then the next person would say, oh, you know what you should do? Freemium, because it's the little people that want this, and that way you get a lot of little people. Da, 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 da. And the next person would say, oh, you know what you should do with this? This should be, you were talking about SEO. It's not. This is about ads. You can measure ads this way. So forget what you said. You should do ads. So everybody I talked to is like, that's cool, comma, and then went off, right? So it's like, okay, there's something cool here, but I don't know where it goes. And WP Engine wasn't like that. It converged instead. It was a compressible medium of state space, and it went somewhere to the things. I told you the 4 things. Those 4 things, the reason I was able to say that is because I got to the point where I was in this call, and in the first 10 minutes, I could tell you what they were going to say the rest of the call. Because it was like, yeah, you're all the same. They would either start saying, oh my God, WordPress. Listen, I got hacked last week. It took me so long to get unscrewed. Oh my God. And I just know, oh, well, it's over. It's security. The thing where we protect you from that, that's it. It just became so obvious. It was almost boring because it was all just going to the same couple of things. There you go. There's a couple of things. Do it. Now we got a company, right? So So in this process of you have hypotheses, you ask the questions open-ended, you kind of route it back in so that you're improving it, and then maybe it goes somewhere and maybe it does not. And the final thing I would say is, even when it goes somewhere and it's solid, you still don't know. Like at WP Engine, we once spent a couple of months researching a certain feature, and we had this overwhelming evidence, doing stuff like I just said, that they would use it. Oh yeah, that sounds great, blah, 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 blah. Then we built it, and I'm not joking, 0 people used it. So that's just to say, you need to do this because it can disprove bad ideas, and that's useful. But god damn, when you actually have it and put it out there, it's way different again lots of times. So what that means is you should only spend so much time doing this, and you got to stop and say, all right, I've gone as far as I can with this. I got to actually build something and put it out there because I'm going to learn so much new stuff. This is not the end of the story at all. So basically, when you stop learning, which means you're stopped getting surprised, that's when you stop learning. That's when you go, okay, I got to stop this, but that doesn't mean I know everything. It just means this isn't the right method to learn more. I need to like put something out there and do it.
So I'm wondering, like, so I'm not super familiar with WordPress, but you know, like when you were building WP Engine back in like whenever it started, I don't know.
2010, right?
Yes.
And like you're giving all your customers these like benefits of like security and whatnot. Why not, like, you know, like once you grow to a certain point, why not just build WordPress yourself, and like you avoid those, like you mentioned, like the negatives of being like attached to like the WordPress ecosystem.
Well, so interestingly, with my email company, we did that. We were using a third-party piece of software for the email, and at one point we couldn't, but it wasn't open source, and we couldn't like it seemed really expensive to me to have to like pay for it, to like for every new customer I wanted to bring on, and we were like, screw this, we're writing our own thing, and we built our own software to go do it. But it was not an ecosystem like this, and there's gonna be different answers. So let's see what Jason says.
Yeah, exactly. So first of all, WordPress is free, so there's no cost reason to move away. So that's one thing. But what you said was, yeah, but like you have the ecosystem risk. Yeah, but we have the ecosystem benefit. WordPress has 50,000 plugins. There's more than 1 million people who say it's their income, and we have maybe we know of a couple 100,000 in particular that we work with where it really is. So all that goes away. Still want to do it? Yeah, so no, because the ecosystem is why we're here. Okay, yeah, execution too, but also that. And so like there's just, it's why we're here, so it doesn't even occur to us to do something like that.
Great question.
You said you listened to your customers and then built the software and then nobody used it. Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah. Yeah, it was an API that we thought thought like, oh, we're going to make this proprietary API for something. I don't want to get into too much detail, it's technical, and which is going to be way better than the API that existed, which it was, and people agreed. The fact is that they would rather just use the thing that's there than be on a proprietary thing. We didn't quite suss that out, obviously. One thing I would say that would probably have helped there is it's very hard to ask someone things like, would you use it, or what would you pay for it? I mean, it's easy to ask. It's easy for them to answer. It's hard for them to answer because they don't really know, and even when they're trying to be helpful and think about it, they really don't know. So if I asked you how much you'd spend to make WordPress secure, I don't know, maybe $10, but when it actually comes down to it, I'm like, well, here's the credit card reader. Guess what? Well, right. So that's the difference between actually asking them to buy and asking what would you pay. And then you realize asking what you pay is like almost useless. But asking him to actually pay, very good. Which is what I did with WP Engine, by the way. I would say, okay, well, it's going to be, I forgot what it was that I was testing different things, $30 or something. Can I charge you the $30? And I won't charge you again until we actually ship it. And of course, I'll just refund if we don't do it. That changed the answers real fast. But then sometimes I would get yes. That's something. So how do you normally do that? Well, you could actually charge. I actually think that's a good idea. You'll find that almost no one will pay. That's the point. That's right. Usually no one will pay. So this really gets to the heart of it. There's another trick, though, if you don't want to go that far, which I like, which is to say, where they say, yeah, I'll use it. And you're like, great. Describe to me in your day, like literally what would you do? Like, I go to this tool, and then now I need to deploy something, so I use this menu item, and then this happens. Explain to me step by step how you would use this in your day. And what happens is they'll start saying, yeah, well, then I guess I'd have to then go to your portal. Oh, wait, I don't have access to your portal. Wait, actually, and then suddenly you realize they wouldn't use it. Because forcing them to actually think through in detail how would they use it instead of just saying I would, they realize no, they wouldn't, or there's this barrier to them using it that you then turns into product. Oh, wait, we need to embed it over here because they don't want to go over there. You've learned that just by making them like mentally walk through the day. So that's when that's not as difficult as asking them to actually pay you. That really will suss out some of that, like, sure, I'd use it.
All right, time for probably just maybe 2 more questions.
So this is a little bit less relating to WordPress and more relating to how you think the future of technology is going. So obviously there's the rapid evolution of AI, especially in the more recent years. But one of the places I've been looking at very closely in the last 3-4 years is how education is going to evolve since COVID and with the introduction of AI. What do you think the introduction of these kinds of systems, VR, AI, and with the reality of COVID is going to do for the education system?
I don't know if COVID's going to do anything anymore, because it didn't really transform education. There were already online things and so on, but AI no doubt is. Everyone has their personal tutor. That's the difference, is like you have a personal tutor, not materials. And as that gets really good, and maybe it's already really good, but as that gets better, which of course it will, there's no doubt that transforms everything. So hopefully what it means is billions of people with much better education than they had.
That's one of the main ways I use ChatGPT now, is I literally just ask it to explain things to me. I'm like, why can I see the moon like this now? Or like, I'm just like, and I'm trying to get myself to use it, but I just think of like, I think it's some random question, and I'm like, go ask ChatGPT. Go, and just like anything I want to know, any kind of random thing like that, like, it can probably tell me. It's like, yeah. Why does this animal do this thing? Right? And like, it has an answer. Like.
Now, I will say, I think if you're curious, then this is wonderful because you'll learn more than ever. But if you're not, then you'll be dumber than ever because you won't need to know. Because when it comes time to know, you'll ask ChatGPT and it'll be right, and you won't have needed to know. So if you're a curious mind and you want to grow in whatever direction, beautiful. Especially when you don't get to be in here and you're God knows where in the world, and you can still have it. There's few things as important and impactful to humanity as that. But if you don't care and you're just you're like, I don't know, then you'll be dumber than ever, and I don't know what the end of the result of that, but that's what happens.
This isn't quite education, but it's just for society. I think it raises the tide. Like, in the way that the calculator does. The calculator makes it so that all kinds of people that couldn't do lots of math effectively, maybe they could if they wanted to learn how to do it, but they effectively would not be able to do it, wouldn't take the time to do it, and they easily can. And now everybody can do math at this level that we couldn't do it before, right? And that's still not as good as a real mathematician who understands it better and blah 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 blah. But the level of society all went up. And I feel like ChatGPT does that in a major way for so many things. It just levels up everyone's basic knowledge, it makes the internet so much more accessible, like the information on the internet. To your answer of ask a question and don't get back a list of web pages, but get back an answer from someone that read the web pages.
Yeah, language is a great example. There's this great thing from Jimmy Wales, the Wikipedia guy. He gives this example of these as if Norwegian is not as a special enough language, there's all these dialects of Norwegian that are even smaller. And the obvious thing is, wow, if you translated all of English Wikipedia, which is of course by far the biggest one, into that, then you imbue so many people with knowledge that they otherwise wouldn't have in their language. That's the obvious one. But he has another really interesting one. there's amazing stuff written in that no one in the world will ever see, except they can. Going the other way is also a magical, wonderful thing, unlocking the ideas and things. Of course, maybe certain things like literature is better in the language. Okay, fair enough. But then it's tied to the language on purpose. But all the other ideas that people have that are not so explicitly tied to the language, now they can actually have a global audience that before, let's say, they couldn't. Amazing. So, I mean, the implications are hard to, it's hard to even enumerate all the amazing things, you know? But also, if you don't care, you're not curious, you don't want, like, well, you don't have to, and I'm not sure what happens next.
Right, but even to that point of like, are you dumber? But like, someone's having a heart attack, and you're gonna, pull out the respirator off the wall and be like, what do I do? This is what's going on, right? And it's gonna like talk to you, right? And it's gonna talk you through doing it. And someone that couldn't have done something is gonna be able to perform medical procedures that they couldn't have done before, and other things like that, And like that to me is the like, again, they didn't really know how to do anything, but they're now able to do it. One more question.
Hey, so given all these new developments with like SGE and then Google's core updates and all that stuff, right? How would you like the game to change such that it would be most advantageous to you, right? Like, what do you think would be the best case scenario for you?
Wait, what are the examples you were giving? I didn't understand that.
Sure, like SGE, like the search generative experience with Google.
SGE? What's that?
It's like their AI-powered search, so it's like you just Google something.
Oh, the thing that has
Exactly.
And so what's the question?
So it's like, given all these new developments, right? How would you like the game to change going forward? Like, what would be most advantageous?
What would be, you mean advantageous to me or like humanity?
To you.
To me?
I'm just wondering.
What would be great to me is that all my content gets ranked super high and I get flooded with new viewers and my ego goes to the roof as if it's not already big enough. That would be good for me. Because I don't need more money, so I just want more, followers, or what do they call them? Isn't that terrible, followers? I mean, friends is weird too. They're neither. I don't know what it is. Anyway, that'd be good for me. I think in general, though, I'd say, obviously, people who have content are upset and worried that they will just melt into some LLM quote unquote brain, and and they're right about that, I guess. There's so much shit on Google, in the internet. So you could argue that even a mediocre LLM is better than 90% of the content, and I think you'd be right. So maybe that causes everyone to have to make better content or just be gone, and maybe that's good in terms of the overall quality of the net. So that could be a good impact of that, is forcing it to be good in some way. It doesn't matter what. It's humorous, it's special, there's stories, it doesn't matter. Like something that isn't just an AI. So you have to be good enough that the AI can't do what you do, which is hard, but hey, at least that's better content than whatever you were doing before. That wasn't very good, I guess, But economically, I don't know what it does. Like, if that crushes everything, then, I mean, okay, that's great in theory, but like, what do we do? Literally, what do people do with their time? Because writing for the Times isn't one of them, and they don't have to. So like, what do you do? And then so I mean, I'm not sure. Another thing is Google could use that to make search results in a sense better, in that like, well, if that's the AI answer, then the search results next better be even better. That'd be good, because that means better content could be surfaced. But we can see already from Google search results that they're not interested in surfacing the best content. And I don't mean just because mine isn't high enough, although that is great evidence that they have bad taste. But that's not really the reason. If you search for most things, the top 10 results, you go there and there's pop-ups and ads and shit everywhere. Like, it's terrible, right? And of course, why is Google doing that? Because some of those are Google ads. They're just giving you more ads. So Google already does not care about giving you the best content. They're giving you ad stuff. So will AI change that? No.
All right, last question for me. Kind of the obvious one to ask, but what advice would you give to yourself back in school? If you don't necessarily, you're interested in entrepreneurship and startups, you've heard some of the pitches, you don't necessarily have the thing yet. What do you wish you knew then that you know now? Or what advice would you give them?
The hard thing about these things is like, even if I could avoid something, yeah, but that's like part of who I am, it's part of how I got to wherever, so I probably need that. So, But I think I would say something like what we were talking about before, which is to try to figure out and trust in, look, you have proclivities, you have your, I don't even want to say strengths, because as we talked about several times, they're also weaknesses. But you have these things that are you. They're the things that are the real you. And if you can, the sooner you can identify what they are and embrace it and not be like, yeah, but also this bad thing. You can stop that shit and just be like, I'm like this, and there's good parts about that, and there's bad parts about that, and well, oh well. let me just absolutely lean into the good parts and be aware of the other stuff so that I can design the rest of my relationships or school or jobs or career or stars around it so that I'm thriving. I'm me thriving in that. Sooner you get there or even have some of it, I mean, of course, life has to be better. You're more productive and efficient, and it's also happier because it's fun to be good at stuff, like usually fun and fulfilling too. So it's probably just good for all those things. And so almost like trusting that whatever that weird intersection is, like the fact that it is a weird intersection is actually sort of the point. That's what makes you special. So rather than, but that's weird, or I heard this pays a lot, like, no, now you're chasing the game everyone else is, that's the wrong game. If whatever your weird ass combo of stuff is, that's where you're special, that's probably the best place, really. That's just like, if I embraced what those were, and I just really, really want to emphasize that it's not strengths and weaknesses, because that's what everybody says. They even say things like lean into your strengths. And it's not that that's bad advice, it's good advice, of course. But like, I'll give you an example. I know we're maybe going over, I don't care. So like at WP Engine, we do this thing called Strengths Finder, which comes from Gallup, you know, right? So it's one of these like kind of personality, they say it's not a personality test, but you know how every one of them is like, we have all the data and ours is data backed and everyone else is a religion and ours is real, but everyone says that, so yeah, I don't know. Anyway, so you take it and they have all these attributes, there's like 34 attributes, and they'll say things like, you have individuality and you have harmony and you have, you know. Anyway, fine. So one of mine is competition. And I remember we were doing this exercise at work, and they had all the people with competition going in this area, and I leaned over and I was like, hey, Tiffany, competition's my number 3. She's like, it's my number 2. I'm like, right, okay. That's why they put us in a group, I guess. So anyway, so is competition a strength? Because it's called Strengths Finder. That's what the name of it is. So it must be a strength, is it? Well, if I'm in a sales pitch, it is, because I'm trying to win the sale. Or if I'm trying to hire someone, it is, because I want them to work here. If I'm trying to raise money, it's a strength because I'm trying to. So yeah, it's totally a strength in that. But today, I got really bad feedback, which I'm like, you know, I came in here actually going like, I gotta like put this aside. I gotta compartmentalize this because this sucks. I was in a meeting the other day, and you'll be shocked to learn that I can be overbearing and loud and not listen to people, and because that same competitiveness makes me want to be right more than finding the truth, despite which is true. That's what I say. That's what I try to do, but that doesn't always work because I have a strength that's being competitive. I mean, competing with what? My teammates? Yeah. Oops. Terrible weakness. And people are like, I don't know, I didn't feel safe in that, blah, 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 blah. It's like, that's the worst thing. Worst thing. Because of what? My strength? So it's not a strength or a weakness. It is both. It depends on the context, what's going on. It is a thing that I have, a thing that I am. And so, I've got to blunt it where it's bad by using, intellectually, since it doesn't come naturally, right? So I have to intellectually blunt it when it's the wrong thing with different things. Learning stuff, habits, who knows, like techniques, blunting things. But boy, when it's the right situation, oh boy, I don't even have to think because it's just who I am. It's kind of part of the point. You don't even have to try. You're just good at it. Yay. And then the other thing is I got to put myself in roles and positions and things as much and often as I can where it just is a strength so I don't have to worry about it. So like put me on the sales calls. Just throw me in there. It's all good. If we have someone we're trying to hire and they're on the fence, just put me on the phone. You don't even have to ask, right? Put me in those situations where I thrive. Just put me there, and then we won't ever have this conversation about the bad feedback ever, right? And don't put me in charge of a bunch of people all the time because I'll be fighting it all the time. I'll get unhappy, which I am. They're probably going to get unhappy. Do not do that. That's like bad structural decision. Now, I still take responsibility, don't get me wrong, but like, still, can we make other decisions where it's easier for me, better for the, like, come on, let's like make a better situation in the first place, right? So both things are true. I'm responsible, and can we try to design a different environment? Both, right? So I'm just emphasizing the strength is the wrong way to look at it. Although what is right is under what conditions is it a strength? Here we go. Under what conditions? Now we're getting somewhere, because now we're figuring out who are we, what does that mean, and then maybe you have a few of these, and maybe they're personality traits like that, or whatever you want to call it. I don't even know. Or things you're good at. I'm good at math. I'm good at poetry. Whatever, right? Like, so whatever. Like maybe it's a skill, or maybe it's a personality. Whatever they are, man. If you can find them, they are both. But see, you can start designing your. I say designing your life. That's maybe saying it a little too much, but kind of, because isn't it always a lens for everything? Yeah.
I think a great point to close on, and our great mutual friend who is one of the two people that helped introduce us to each other, Rick Westervelt, had a saying that he often would who I worked with a lot, and he would often say that for many of us, our strengths become our weaknesses when they kind of like when we flex the muscle too far, right, or we use them in the wrong places, in that same kind of way, and I think that's really true. So, really great point. Thank you, Jason, for coming to spend your time with us today. Thanks for Jason also just was such a huge part of helping to start Capital Factory. He was one of the first people I ever went to about being a mentor. When we started this class, he was the first person I went to and said, will you teach this class with me? He said, no, I'm running WP Engine. I'm too busy. But he still comes back and speaks here frequently. But he was the first person I went to. And you know, I don't get to see him very much anymore because we both have families and run businesses, and even though we're a few blocks away. But I still, you know, I'm so thankful for just everything that we've gotten to do together and the impact you've had here at Capital Factory on my life, and for still showing up to come here to spend time with us. So thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody.
All right. And for next week, a reminder, it's the $1,000 pitch off. To get someone's gonna get $1,000. It's anybody from any student at UT can pitch, and we're gonna please sign up ahead of time. So we'll see you next week.
Oh, and parking.
Emily has parking validation.
So she went to dog training school.